The first gray light of dawn lit Violet's face, showing the bruises Silas had given her. One eye was swollen shut. Her upper arms were black and blue, and her t-shirt was torn at the shoulder and stained with blood from her nose. She'd never had a happy face, but now she looked sadder than ever. Arthur laid the briefcase in Violet's lap, as if it were a holy offering. She stared at it in disbelief. "You found it," she whispered. A real smile lit her face. She flung her arms around him. "Thank you, Arthur, thank you." Arthur blushed and Danny groaned in embarrassment, but I was just plain happy to see that smile on Violet's face. Violet fumbled with the briefcase's rusty old catch and lifted the lid. On top was a pink envelope and an ordinary 5-subject spiral notebook, the sort you'd use in school. Under that were bundles of bills, more money than I'd ever seen in my life. Thousands, millions maybe. It was unbelievable. Too stunned to speak, we sat there and stared at the money. No one touched it, not even Danny. With care, Violet plucked the envelope out of the briefcase. Inside were 2 things, a note from Mrs. Donaldson and a green plastic gingerbread man. Holding the little man in one hand, Violet read her mother's words out loud. "Dearest Violet, this is Richard DeSilvio's briefcase. It contains over $2 million, which he embezzled over a period of years from the Magic Forest and other businesses in Balesville. The notebook contains the records he kept of his criminal activity. I think Silas is somehow involved, but I'm not sure how. Maybe he does Mr. DeSilvio's dirty work. Someone must. If anything happens to me, one of them is responsible. Take the briefcase to the police. I know Mr. DeSilvio's an important man, and he's done a lot for Bealsville, but the fact is he's a criminal and a dangerous man. Be careful, Violet. Keep yourself and the children safe. I love you." Mrs. Donaldson signed her name with a flourish. Beneath it, she'd added, "P.S. Here's the 12th gingerbread man, which you have earned by retrieving the briefcase." As Violet finished reading her mother's note, she began to cry. Danny patted her shoulder and mumbled things I couldn't quite hear. They might have been descriptions of awful things he had wanted to do to Silas and Mr. DeSilvio, or they might have been attempts to comfort his mother. Knowing Danny, who could tell? Nina left a group of police and sat there beside Violet. "Is that what I think it is?" she asked in a soft voice. Violet showed her the briefcase, the notebook, and the money. "It's all the proof you need. And look, Mr. DeSilvio's initials are on the lid. See?" She pointed to 3 faded gilt letters, R.J.D. Nina reached for the briefcase. "What's in your hand?" she asked Violet. "Just a note from my mother. And this." She'd held out her hand, palm up, and showed Nina the little gingerbread man. "I'll need those too," Nina said gently. Violet closed her hand around the gingerbread man and pressed the note to her chest. "You can't take these. They're from my mother. I'm sorry. It's evidence. Please." "If possible, I'll have the little plastic figure returned to you. I imagine the police will keep the letter. If you wish, I'll make a copy for you." Violet nodded silently and let Nina take everything. "There was another letter," she said, "but Silas took it." Arthur reached deep into his pockets and took out a wadded-up sheet of paper. "Here's the copy Logan and I made." "Thank you, Arthur." Nina smiled at him in the old way, charming me all over again. "So who killed my grandmother?" Danny broke in. "Mr. DeSilvio or my... It just seemed the word father had gotten stuck in his throat and he couldn't say it. Nina patted his shoulder. "We can't be sure until both men are tried." Turning to Arthur and me, she said, "I've talked to your parents, Logan, and your grandmother, Arthur. It's time to take you both home." The policeman stepped forward and offered Violet and Danny a ride to Walmart so that she could get her car. Bear followed them into the back seat. "Hey," Arthur yelled at the dog, "come back here." Danny looked out the window at us, his scowl firmly in place. Told you, he's my dog, he snarled. I'm taking him home, to my house. Just try and stop me. He won't stay, Arthur said. Bear's used to a higher standard of living. You'll see. Danny rolled up the window, and the police car drove away. You'll see, Arthur muttered. Nina put a hand on her shoulders. You know, you both have been incredibly foolish. Arthur's chin jutted out. We had to get that briefcase before the bulldozers came. It would have been safer and much more sensible for you to go to the police. If we'd known you were a detective, I said. Maybe. And maybe not, Arthur said angrily. I could tell. Arthur was angry, I could tell. And what do you mean? What do you mean, Nina asked. You told Logan's mother a lot of stuff about me, he said. Mrs. Forbes used to like me a lot, even invited me to dinner at their house, but now she hates me, just because of what you told her. To keep from looking at Arthur, I started scratching an itchy place on my leg. He had no idea how Mom actually felt about him, which was just as well. Listen to me, Arthur. Nina lifted his chin and forced him to look at her. Your boy detective routine was getting in the way of a criminal investigation. I thought if I broke you two up, you'd stay out of the magic forest, and I'd be free to get on with my work without having to worry about you. You didn't have to tell Mrs. Forbes lies. Nina sighed. I'll talk to Logan's mom, she told Arthur. I'll say I was misinformed. He shrugged and shoved his hands into his pocket. From the look on his face, I guessed he didn't have much faith in Nina. To change the subject, I tugged Nina's arm. What happened to Billy and Johnny? Did they get caught too? Nina shook her head. They managed to slip away in the confusion. But don't worry, we'll find them. On the way out of the park, a gang of reporters came running over. Are these the boys who found the evidence? One asked, while another thrust a camera into our faces. It seemed they'd already talked to Violet and Danny, but they wanted to hear the story from us. Arthur did most of the talking. Using his fanciest vocabulary words, he exaggerated everything, especially the part where we'd faced down Mr. DeSilvio. Even though Nina tried to correct his most outlandish claims, the reporters were pretty impressed with Arthur's heroic actions. After about a half an hour, Nina managed to pry us away. At least they were real reporters. Arthur gave Nina a sidewise look. And we really will be in the newspaper this time. Nina didn't even blush.